Are you having problems today? I've got some problems. We all have some problems of some sort. Today I want to talk about those problems. And I have some problems that are unexplainable. So stick around while I show you what is going on. Welcome back to Pushing Technology to the Limit. Thank you for watching this video and subscribing to my YouTube channel. Now, I don't know about you folks, but I've got some weird, wacky problems I've been working on, and I don't understand it. And I work on it, troubleshoot the stuff, and some goes away, some doesn't, and it's not explainable why it stopped working and then it starts working. And I've got a lot of stuff to talk to you about today, but the one thing I want to talk to you about first is this one computer. Let me show you this system. So I've got this compact computer, and it's on a remote switch, so we can switch it on and off from upstairs. So the one thing, right now it's working fine. It's off, but the power light on the left hand side was always lit. Now let me show you something in the back. Now here in the back is all the wires. And the white cable that you see is the Ethernet cable. That card was running all the time. And I could not figure out why, when there was absolutely no power to this system, that the Ethernet card was lit and part of the power light was lit. So the light on the computer was just lit very dismal. And one day I came down here. This stuff has been happening since last year. And I've had a lot more weird problems been going on since last year. That I finally got settled down. But still in my mind is like, why? Now, most of you don't have the stuff that I've got down here. This is the control room. And just a couple days ago, before making this video, my office upstairs, I've got a brand new TV, and I'm actually using that. It's a 32-inch TV set, and I'm using it for a computer monitor. So the night before, when I was shutting down one of my computers that has a dual monitor display on it, I shut down just fine, and I switched over to my other computer, and it was working on that big 32-inch TV. So the next day I get into my office. The video is not there, but the secondary monitor has video. Quite odd. I know I'm jumping around here from subject to subject, but I want to explain to you about some of these issues that I've been having. Now, I went down to this control room here that I am in now, and I turned on the monitors for the control system down here, and both the first monitor and the second monitor were running. It's kind of a pigsty down here, if you can't tell, and some of that is to do with some of my issues, and I'm not talking about the physical pigsty about a lot of nonsense all over the floor, but wires in the ceiling run all over the place. Now, a lot of my issues had to do with the wiring. So let me show you what's going on up my ceiling. So here is a whole entire video system that I've got set up for the office upstairs. Now this controls more than just one computer, but it also is HDMI. So it's the high definition media interface. And I have found, as you can see here, that there is tremendous amount of wires. I actually, when I installed these HDMI splitters, where is one here? Right there. I didn't roll up the power cable. So all the power cables were hanging right down here. Now this still looks messy on camera, but when you look at it with your eyeballs, if you're down here like I am, it's not nearly as messy because I've got all these wires raveled up now. You can see the twist ties on different cables that I've got. So I've got them corralled into a spot. Now on the back to my computer problem. It wasn't really even a problem. It was just odd. Because like I said, the computer worked fine. It came on, it ran, it went off, but it just fooled you thinking that there was power to the system when there really wasn't. When I did my cable management, I found all these power cables wrapped around the Ethernet cable to that one computer. The only thing I can think of is that there was power somehow, because there's magnetical field from the electrical, that was somehow influencing the network cable, and somehow it was fooling my switch on my network that there was actually network information when there was absolutely nothing going on. The computer didn't even have any power. Even the power supply didn't have power because of the way this thing is set up. Let me show you the remote switches I have set up on certain computers. So here is the phone switch that I've got for that one computer that I was having problems with. And I've got several of these switches, and over here too. And I've got two computers plugged into this switch. And let me show you the front of this thing here. The other one's not so full. But so there's the phone cable, and it is let's see here. Looks like it might be on, but the computer isn't on. But it doesn't matter really. What I'm just getting at is the fact that this computer is now, whether there's power on it or not, the light is not running. So when this phone switch is off, there's two green lights. I must have forgotten to shut the thing off. Sometimes I do that, and sometimes I try to make it a point to, when I shut the computer off, to just absolutely just shut down everything, and that means even calling up the switch. So it's a nice little switch. I mean, if you have a PBX, now I can't really get into this on this video, but you can run multiple phone switches for computers and accessories without phone service. If you don't have a PBX, you need to have a phone line to call into this unit. I know I'm still just bouncing around here from hither and there and everywhere else, but I've got so much stuff to talk about, I really can't just zone in on one thing and talk about it, because there's so much to talk about. So, one thing that I've also had problem with is I've had, and I don't even know why it does it. I mean, like I talked about the video system, it was all analog to start with. Now I switched probably about 90% of it over to HDMI. There is still analog equipment, and I don't understand this, but the video monitors down here do not have any lines, but the ones that are up in my office, like my brand new 32-inch TV, has these like analog squiggles on it, and I went back and I switched it back to the old monitors, and there still was squiggles on it. So I don't know what's going on. Still even to this day. The only thing I can blame it on is the fact that I am converting from analog to digital. Now, that sounds kind of hokey, and you're wondering, well, why did you do that? For one reason, at the time I didn't realize that it was going to cause me issues. And the other thing is that, I buy things a little here and a little there. Sometimes I need to get enough money to be able to buy the thing, so, I don't buy everything right off the bat. And these switches should be switched over to HDMI switches. I'm going to show you that right now. Pardon the mess, but it's really hard to see, and especially with that light bulb there. There's a box kind of sitting in front of it, which is HDMI, but there's that other thing behind it, that's my switch, and those are all analog. And they connect all these computers here to that switch, different ones. Now, not all of them. I had to have two switches connected together. I had to daisy chain them. Now, this is switch 1. But it doesn't look like switch 1 from here because we're on the back side of things here. So, over here, there's another switch, and I don't think you can really see it too well because of my lighting I've got down here. And I've got so much stuff that it's buried. Well, you can see it a little bit. But let me get to the front and I'll show you the front of these switches. So this is my switch 1 right here. And over here is my switch 2. Now, the only problem with this is that they're daisy chained. And that is not the best way to go, but I was just piecemealing this stuff together a long time ago, and I just, at one time I just needed a switch for 4, and then all of a sudden I find myself needing another switch. So, at the time I was like, well, I couldn't find the switch I wanted. These switches have audio, and I could not find a switch that had 8 or 16 computers with audio. It was just video. I'm like, no, I want to have a switch that has both audio and video. So the other, back to my, about my screen not working upstairs. Several things I tried, and I gotta make another video sometime about power supplies. Because I have found that when the power supplies die, that makes the equipment fail. And even if it's in a slow death, if it's not providing enough power, whether it's 5 volts or it's 12 volts, that's DC, it causes all sorts of havoc. Now, I went through the entire system the other day and troubleshooted this, troubleshooted that, and I couldn't figure out what the heck was going on because my HDMI converter, so that sends it from the VGA to HDMI, was lit. And I was like, well, that's on. Well, I plug in a VGA to HDMI, well, I don't know how to say it. I guess an adapter. So that if your computer is strictly HDMI, you can still use your VGA monitors. So that's what I did. I plugged in a VGA to HDMI adapter to use with my VGA monitor. And nothing showed up. So I went and I traced it back to my splitter, and there was video on the splitter, but no video in the HDMI converter. So I unplugged it, and I had another same brand HDMI converter, and plugged it in, and it started working. I'm like, well, heck, how did that happen? So I plugged back in the original power supply. It started working. I'm like, what the hell? What's going on? I mean, it still works today, but I'm like, why did it start working? Who knows? It's weird. The only thing I can think of is that because we're down here in the basement, is that there could be a little moisture. I've had this issue before with some other problems, and that's one thing I've never really told you about, is my audio problem that I had. So, kind of getting back to the moisture deal, that's what was going on with my audio. There was different times when I would be, in my office and the audio sounded garbly. I'm like, well, what's going on with that? Is my sound card dying? So I went and messed around trying to figure out what was going on, and then I switched to another computer. The sound card was just fine. Went back to the other one, garbly. Well, then one day, I lived with the garbly audio for a little bit, and I was like, I'm not going to mess with that. It still works. I can hear some things. It's just not to my satisfaction. So, one day, it just automatically just shuts off. I'm like, what in the world? And I was in middle of an editing project, and I was like, I gotta have sound. So I come down here and start messing with the computer equipment. Come to find out there was moisture on the 1/8 plug I had in my sound card. Cleaned it off, just took my shirt and just dried it off, plugged it back in, and I had perfect sound. And the other thing is that I could tell it was from the problem was down here, because I have an amplifier down here and it was the same garbled audio. So the only thing I could think of that was wrong with my my video system was that there was some moisture in the DC power jack that was causing some issues. Now, even though that it worked, it looked like it was working, it wasn't really working. But that still is weird, and I can't explain it. So the other weird thing I've had since last year, a problem. Now this is going to be a totally different video. I can't go into explanation of all this in this video, but I had a huge internet problem. It was going slow, fast, and then I couldn't even troubleshoot the thing. So just last week I was just like, okay, our internet's down. Absolutely nothing. No phones, no computers. Everything was, I was just like, it was back in the dark ages. So I get on my other phone, my cell phone, and I called them up and said, to the internet service provider, I have no internet. Absolutely nothing. So they go through their horse's patut of troubleshooting tips, which I've already done. I've done that before I even called them. And I'm sitting down, it's like, what do I try next? Well, all of a sudden the internet comes on. But I've been having some weird issues with Firefox. I listen to I buy a bunch of CDs on Amazon that come with a free MP3 version on their Amazon Music site. So, for a while now, the Amazon website was saying Firefox is no longer supported. Please update. And I was ignoring that sign and just kept running the service as is with my Firefox. So, just the other day, I bought an MP3 album. It wasn't a CD. Tried to download it. It said blocked. I'm like, what? What the hell is wrong with that? And it said, ad block. I got to thinking about it. I was using DNS servers that were not provided by my ISP. That means Internet Service Provider. Now, I can't go into the DNS servers right at this time, but I'm going to make another video about that. Come to find out that the DNS server I was using was having a problem. And when I switched to another DNS server, it fixed my speed problem. The phones worked, the websites worked, all the computers worked. I was even able to get on Amazon and listen to my music that I bought. I tell you what, that was like a virus. It was awful. Then I had to flush my cookies out, and I basically shut down the computer in a cold state, which means I just shut off the power. I didn't go to start and shut down. So, next time when you're having problems, especially with your internet, look at your DNS servers. You can always look up more, and if you're advanced enough that you can replace them, replace them. So, I hope you enjoyed this video. You got something out of it. I'm not trying to go over your head, but this internet stuff is a little bit more advanced, and I'll talk about that in another video. And there's just some days you just can't figure out why it just works and why it doesn't. But sometimes you just have to rip it apart and try something else. And if you got a setup like mine, you may be having some of the same issues. And that's what my other thing is right now is, that wiggling and squiggling on my monitor up in my office really drives me crazy. But I just think it's that switch. Just this analog stuff. Once I switch to HD, it'll be fine. Because the other monitor, my secondary monitor, is HD. So I have no problems with that at all. So I hope you got something from this video. If you know somebody that needs some help, pass the video along to them. And I hope I'll see you the next time on another video on pushing technology. And I'll see you later.